for joining me on the news. The headline says Israel-Hamas truce to begin, hostage release expected. North Korea marks space power era with satellite launch. Taiwan opposition presents separate candidates. Dublin erupts in violence after stabbing of 5, and Beijing misery pneumonia outbreak strains hospitals. On Israel-Hamas conflict, a truce between Israel and Hamas is due to come into effect at 7 a.m. local time, 12 a.m. ET on Friday, with civilian hostages held captive by militants anticipated to be released in the coming hours as part of a breakthrough diplomatic deal following an uneasy day-long delay. The first of 13 women and children held in Gaza are expected to be freed later Friday, mediators in Qatar said the previous day. 39 Palestinian prisoners will also be released by Israel Friday as part of the deal, according to an Israeli official. A halt in fighting slated to last at least 4 days will confirm the fragile diplomatic deal announced on Wednesday is progressing as planned, marking the first sustained break in hostilities after nearly 7 weeks of conflict and the first expected large-scale release of hostages. The truce between Israel and Hamas appeared to be taking effect despite a barrage of Israeli artillery fire and sirens warning of rockets from Gaza in the minutes after it was due to commence. In the southern Israel city of Sderot, reports said the sounds of heavy weapons fire stopped around 7:18 a.m. local time. They heard what sounded like small firearms inside Gaza about 20 minutes later, but artillery fire, airstrikes and rockets appeared to have stopped. The halts will also permit for a ramp-up in much-needed humanitarian aid entering Gaza, where weeks of Israeli blockade, bombardments and ground invasion have fueled a dire humanitarian crisis. A large convoy of 8 trucks lined up at the Rafah crossing on the Egypt-Gaza border was expected to move into the embattled Hamas-controlled enclave immediately at the start of the pause, the United Nations said on Thursday. Israel declared war on Hamas following the militant group's bloody October 7th terror attack on its territory, in which over 1,200 people were killed, the largest such attack on Israel since the country's founding in 1948. Militants are holding over 200 people captive inside Gaza from mass abductions that day, according to figures from the Israeli military. On the terms previously announced by Qatar, a total of 50 of those hostages, women and children, are expected to be freed over a 4-day humanitarian pause in fighting. The deal includes the release of 150 Palestinian prisoners during the same period, according to Israel, with the potential for an extension and more releases in the days after. Most of the prisoners concerned are male teenagers, along with some women, according to an Israeli government list of those who could be released. The agreement followed mounting pressure on the Israeli government from the families of the hostages, who have demanded answers and action from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. It also comes amidst growing international pressure for more humanitarian support for the people of Gaza. The number of people killed in Gaza since October 7 now stands at 14,854, according to information from Hamas authorities in the Strip. Israel's defense minister said he expects the military operation against Hamas will continue forcefully after the truce. Now, Kim Jong-un, North Korea leader, has celebrated a new era of a space power following the country's launch of its first ever military spy satellite earlier this week. Pyongyang said it successfully launched the satellite, the Gong-1, into orbit late on Tuesday, and within hours claimed Kim was reviewing images of United States military bases in Guam. The launch was a full-fledged exercise of the right to self-defense, Kim said during a visit to the National Space Agency. The launch was an eye-opening event that will help protect North Korea from the dangerous and aggressive moves of hostile forces and heralded a new era of a space power, he added. The launch, banned under United Nations sanctions designed to rein in the nuclear-armed country's ballistic missiles program, has further ratcheted up tension on the peninsula, with Seoul partially suspending and Pyongyang completely suspending the 2018 joint military agreement that was supposed to stabilize cross-border relations. Seoul's foreign ministry on Friday announced that the foreign ministers of South Korea, Japan and China will hold their first trilateral talks since 2019. The Sunday meeting in the southern port city of Busan will see Park Jin, Yoko Kimikawa and Wang Yi sit down for discussion against the backdrop of Beijing's growing concerns over Tokyo and Seoul's deepening security ties with Washington, and the latter's concerns about North Korea's continuing military development and its deepening relationship with Russia. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has already warned that military ties between North Korea and Russia were growing and dangerous after Kim traveled to Russia in September to meet President Vladimir Putin. Blinken has urged Beijing, Pyongyang's main ally, to call for some restraint. At the summit, the foreign ministers plan to exchange opinions extensively on the direction of development of trilateral cooperation, regional and international situations, Seoul's foreign ministry said in a statement. On election matters in Taiwan for next year's presidential elections, Taiwan's opposition parties have registered separate candidates hours after an attempt to field a joint ticket against the ruling Democratic Progressive Party DPP collapsed in acrimony on live television. The major opposition Kuomintang KMT is fielding Ho Yu-i for the presidency, while Ko Wen-jae will run for the smaller Taiwan People's Party TPP. The KMT chose pro-China media personality Zhou Shaw Kong as host running mate, while the TPP opted for one of its lawmaker, Cynthia Wu. Terry Goh, the billionaire founder of Apple supplier Foxconn, announced in August he will run as independent, but he lags far behind the other candidates in opinion polls, and it is not clear whether he will register with the Elections Commission by 9:30 GMT on Friday deadline. The January 13th election is taking place as Beijing, which views Taiwan as its own territory, steps up military and political pressure on the self-ruled island. The DPP, which says the people of Taiwan must be the ones to decide its future, is fielding current Vice President William Lai as its candidate, with Hasayo Kim, Taipei's former envoy in the United States, as his running mate. China has dubbed them separatists and the independence duo. The opposition parties, who are seen as more Beijing-friendly, announced last week that they will field a joint candidate in a move that will have created a major challenge to Lai, who is far ahead in the polls. But as they struggled to reach an agreement, the effort collapsed in a spectacular fashion late on Thursday when the KMT walked out of last-ditch talks at a Taipei hotel brokered by Gu and broadcast live on television. In an event marked by argument and cross-talk, one of the most dramatic moments came when Hu read a private text message from Ko that said Gu needed to find a reason to drop out of the presidential race. Ko, whose party is smaller, has performed above expectations and has recently been polling neck and neck with Ho. In the central part of Dublin, Ireland, on Thursday, violent clashes broke out between police and protesters after a knife attack in the capital city earlier in the day left 3 children and 2 adults injured. The streets of Dublin were mainly calm shortly before midnight, reports said, citing police. A major operation is underway to restore order in the city after the attack and the protest. The Gardaí, as the Irish police are known, said in a statement that further information and details of specific incidents will be provided at the conclusion of this operation. Video on social media early on Thursday appears to show a group of men clashing violently with officers in Dublin and setting a police car on fire. Drew Harris, the commissioner of the Gardaí, condemned the clashes as disgraceful sins and blamed them on a complete lunatic hooligan faction driven by far-right ideology. Harris has directed officers to make arrests in response to the violence. The Irish police said they aren't considering terrorism as a motive for the serious assault in the city. Gardaí Superintendent Liam Garati reassured the public that there is no terror-related activity in the stabbings. He also confirmed a knife was used in the attack and applauded members of the public who intervened to stop the attacker. Police are in contact with the children's families. According to the Gardaí, police said they aren't looking for any additional suspect but haven't released further details about the nature of the incident. Ursula von der Leyen, European Union Commission President, said she was shocked by the knife attack, according to a statement on X. Similarly, Ireland's Deputy Prime Minister said he was deeply shocked by the serious incident in Dublin. On health matters, hospitals in Beijing and northern China are struggling with the rise of children with respiratory illnesses as the country enters its first winter since relaxing strict COVID-19 controls nearly 1 year ago. Wait times to see doctors stretch for hours, with hundreds of patients queuing at some children's hospitals in major cities across northern China, according to reports. On Tuesday, an official at the Beijing Children's Hospital said present average of over 7,000 daily patients far exceeds the hospital's capacity. The largest pediatric hospital in nearby Tianjin broke a record on Saturday, receiving over 13,000 children at its outpatient and emergency departments, according to reports. Health officials in Beijing and other major cities in northern China have said typical seasonal illnesses, including influenza and respiratory syncytial virus (RSV), as well as Mycoplasma pneumonia, a bacterial infection that typically causes mild infection and commonly affects children, were driving causes. The increase in cases across northern China comes amid a rise in seasonal respiratory infections around the northern hemisphere, including in the United States, where RSV is spreading at unprecedented levels amongst children. But the situation in China raised global concern after the World Health Organization, WHO, on Wednesday asked China to provide more information on an increase in respiratory illnesses and reported clusters of undiagnosed pneumonia in children, citing a post from open source surveillance system ProMed. After speaking with Chinese health and hospital officials on Thursday, however, the WHO said the data indicated an increase in outpatient consultations and hospital admissions of children due to Mycoplasma pneumonia in May and common seasonal illnesses RSV, adenovirus, and influenza virus since October. The agency added that Chinese authorities said there had been no detection of any unusual or novel pathogens or unusual clinical presentations. Outside experts monitoring the situation also noted there was no evidence of a novel pathogen at work, but called for China to share more information about the situation with the public. Catherine Bennett, an epidemiologist at Deakin University in Australia, said the main concern is if the rise in childhood pneumonia were to indicate a new pathogen or new levels of disease severity. On more stories in African since candidates contest election body ahead of DRC poll. Several candidates, including Denis Mukwege, Martin Fayulu, and Theodore Ngoy, have announced their intention to challenge the Independent National Electoral Commission (CENI) for its alleged failure to ensure the regularity of the electoral process in the lead-up to the Democratic Republic of Congo's DRC presidential election on December 20th. Theodore Ngoy, a presidential candidate, raised concerns about the legitimacy of voters' cards, stating that 80% of them are illegible due to being printed on thermal paper. He suggested that voters were deliberately provided with cards that had erasable prints, raising questions about the integrity of the election process. With 25 candidates running for president and a month-long election campaign underway, the political climate in the DRC remains tense. The country, with almost 100 million people, is set to witness a crucial election where around 44 million registered voters will cast their ballots. In addition to choosing a new president, voters will decide on tens of thousands of candidates for legislative and local bodies. Still ahead, Niger military visits Bamako, Mali. General Abdurrahman Tiani, the head of military regime in Niger, met with his counterpart leading the military junta in Mali, Assimi Goïta, in his first international visit since the coup in Niamey. Tiani expressed gratitude to Mali for the support and determination of the authorities and the Malian people to stand alongside the authorities and the people of Niger, regardless of the obstacles, during a press statement before leaving Mali for Burkina Faso. Mali and Burkina Faso, both led by military leaders who came to power through coups in 2020 and 2022, quickly showed solidarity with the generals in Niamey after their takeover in late July. Together, they established the Alliance des États du Sahel AES, which includes mutual assistance in case of threats to the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the three states and strengthened economic ties. The aim is to transform the Sahel region from a zone of insecurity to a zone of prosperity, stated Tiani. Unified against international pressures advocating a return to democracy regimes, The three military regimes also stand united against jihadis whose attacks devastate their countries, acknowledging the Niger embargo situation subject to political and economic sanctions from the economic community of West African state ECOWAS, similar to Mali at one point. General Tani thanked his Malian and Burkinabe neighbors who continue to trade with his country. The duration of the transition in Niger is yet to be determined, but General Tiani had announced shortly after taking power that it will not exceed 3 years. In Mali, the presidential election scheduled for early 2024 has been postponed to an indefinite date. On Thursday morning, a statement released shows that Bamako will host 2 ministerial meetings from November 23rd to December 1st to outline the operationalization of the EES, including the development of texts, the establishment of organs, and the modalities of its functioning. The first meeting will bring together the Ministers of Economy and Trade on November 25th to discuss economic development issues. The foreign ministers of the 3 countries will meet on November 30th to address political and diplomatic matters. These meetings will precede a later meeting of the defense ministers, as stated in the press release. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, I'll bring you more stories from Nigeria. Do stay with us. You're welcome back. More stories here says Tinubu enacts Defense Industries Corporation Bill. President Bola Tinubu has assented to the Defense Industries Corporation DCON Bill 2023. The Defense Industries Corporation of Nigeria was established on August 1st, 1964 by an Act of Parliament and revised as the DCON Act in Chapter 94 of the Laws of the Federation 2004, according to a release yesterday by Presidential Spokesperson Ajuri Ngalali. The Defense Industry Corporation of Nigeria Act 2023 repealed the prior iteration of the Defense Industries Corporation of Nigeria Act and empowered the Defense Industries Corporation of Nigeria to operate, maintain, and control subsidiaries and ordnance factories to manufacture, store, and dispose of ordnance and ancillary stores and material. Also, to establish the Defense Industry Technology, Research and Development Institute, DITRDI, to create an elaborate scientific and research-based technological foundation for Nigeria's defense industry through the leveraging of combined multidisciplinary research from multiple military research institutes for application that leads to commercialization and the development of new military technology and capacity in Nigeria. Provide a comprehensive regulatory framework for the regulation of the manufacturing, distribution, storage, and disposal of defense articles in Nigeria. Incentivize the development of a nuanced financing architecture that enables private capital to facilitate research, development, and production in the defense sector in a transparent and predictable fashion. The Defense Industries Corporation of Nigeria Bill 2023 was sponsored by the chairman of the House of Representatives Committee on Defense, Honorable Babajimi Benson, APC, Ikorodu Federal Constituency. On judicial matters, Appeal Court overturns Nasarawa Governor's sack. Yesterday, the Court of Appeal sitting in Abuja overturned the nullification of the election of Governor Abdullahi Sule of Nasarawa State. In a unanimous decision by a 3-member panel of justices, the Appellate Court annulled the verdict of the Nasarawa State Governorship Election Petition Tribunal, which sacked Governor Sule of the All Progressives Congress APC. In the lead judgment that was delivered by Justice Uche Chukwu Onumne Nam, the court held that evidence before it established that the tribunal relied on legally inadmissible evidence to declare the candidate of the People's Democratic Party (PDP), David Bugadu, as the valid winner of the governorship election that was held in the state on March 18th. According to the Appellate Court, the tribunal wrongly depended on the evidence of 8 of the witnesses that were produced by the PDP candidate, whose statements on oath were not front-loaded alongside the petition. It stressed that Section 285, subsection 5 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, Section 132, subsection 7 of the Electoral Act 2022, and paragraphs 4, subsection 5 and 6, and 14, subsection 2 of the first schedule to the Electoral Act, every written statement on oath must be filed alongside the petition within the statutorily allocated time. The appellate court proceeded to strike out all the evidence and exhibits that were presented before the tribunal by the 8 witnesses. It held that the evidence of 12 remaining witnesses who testified for the PDP candidate was not sufficient to sustain the judgment of the tribunal. More so, the appellate court held that the tribunal was in error when it deducted a total of 1,868 votes that were credited to Governor Sule on the premise that overvoting occurred in 4 polling units. It held that the tribunal was wrong in its decision since the petitioners did not provide the necessary documents needed to prove overvoting. The court noted that the bimodal voter accreditation system, BVAS machines, and other electoral documents were merely dumped on the tribunal without any demonstration to show how the overvoting occurred. It faulted the tribunal for summarily dismissing the evidence of the witnesses that testified for the APC candidate, describing the action as perverse, adding that none of the witnesses that were called by the PDP and its candidate gave valid evidence that the tribunal could have acted on. It held that the tribunal acted wrongly when it recomputed votes and made the declaration that returned the PDP candidate as the winner of the election. Consequently, it vacated the order of the tribunal that directed the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) to withdraw the certificate of return that was issued to Governor Sule as the winner of the governorship race. And finally, on the news, NNPCL to hold fuel import December 2024 expects 4.5 trillion naira revenue. On Thursday, the Nigeria National Petroleum Company Limited (NNPCL) said by December 2024 it will end the importation of refined petroleum products as all the country's refineries will be operational by then. It also estimated that the national oil firm will raise its revenue to 4.5 trillion naira at the end of 2023, adding that the rehabilitation of the Port Harcourt refining company under the NNPCL's management will be done by December this year. Mele Kyari, the group chief officer of the NNPCL, revealed this when he led officials of the company to a meeting with the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajuddin Abbas, where the lawmaker called for the privatization of Nigeria's refineries. Also yesterday, oil marketers confirmed the readiness of the Port Harcourt refinery as they stated that its operations, which could start in January 2024, will lead to a considerable drop in the prices of refined petroleum products. At the meeting in Abuja, Kyari declared that Nigeria was on track to stop the importation of refined petroleum products in 2024 and would emerge as a net exporter of the commodities in the same year. He also provided details on the commencement of operations of the Port Harcourt, Warri, and Kaduna refineries. The company's helmsman said all refineries will become fully operational, adding that the country will become a net exporter of the petroleum products by the end of 2024. He blamed the petroleum subsidy for inactive refineries in Nigeria over the years, emphasizing that the removal of subsidy was already attracting a lot of private sector investments. A recap of major stories says Israel-Hamas truce to start, hostage release expected. North Korea marks space power era with satellite launch. Taiwan opposition presents separate candidates. Dublin erupts in violence after stabbing of 5. And Beijing mystery pneumonia outbreak strains hospitals. And that's all on the news. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend.